In this video, we'll be tracking objects in order to show that we've collected them, and also using UI text and triggers to display things to the screen. So let's do a quick demo. If I hit play, we have some text that says go grab some shapes. Okay. I have a cube, 2 cubes, 3. Great. Oh, what's that? It's a cylinder. That's not a cube or a sphere. What is it? Oh, very mysterious. So we have this trigger that's displaying a different set of text on the screen. So we'll be going over how to do that. Okay. So I've already done a little bit of setup for this lesson, and what we have here is a terrain object that I put together, and then in this terrain I have some cubes, just regular old cubes, and some spheres. So I've scattered them around the scene, and then I also have this cylinder that'll be our mystery object. And I haven't done anything, I've just put them in the scene and placed them where I wanted them to go. I also imported the controller asset library, and that's under, if you import package, the character package, you can find that. And if you import that, the first person player controller is found under characters, first person character. There's some prefabs, and I'm using the FPS controller.
One thing I've also done is added rigid bodies to the spheres and cubes, and this isn't for any particular reason, but I just like how they, when you play the game, they fall to the ground, they kind of land randomly, so I think it's kind of a nice little element. So don't forget to add those too.
So I will pause for a second to let you catch up with this setup. We have a terrain, cubes and spheres, and a cylinder, and then the FPS controller. So I'm going to pause for just a moment to let you do that. Okay, so what we need to do is, in this example, we're using our character as a trigger to run function. So when our character hits these objects, something will happen. So we need to first make sure that our character can be a trigger, and to do that we have to add in a collider. So I'm going to add in a capsule collider around our character, and if we zoom in on this, we can resize our capsule collider to fit a little bit better. So I can kind of make it character shaped, something like that. Just so if there was like a body here, that we would be able to surround it with our collider. And then the second step is to actually turn it into a trigger. So it is a trigger. Now, one of the things that we want to do is to be able to detect when our collider is hitting things. And so in order to do that, we need to add in a script. So I'm going to add a script. Colliding. I'll open that up. Okay. So what we want to do, when you're using a trigger, there is a function that runs when your trigger first interacts with something, and that is the function on trigger enter. And what this is detecting is your collisions with other colliders. So we have to, our argument here is the other collider that we're hitting. And just a heads up, if you don't capitalize that O, it won't work. So make sure your O is capitalized. And so what we want to do is whenever we hit another collider, we're just going to start off with logging it to the console. And we're going to log the tag, because you can tag objects to make them unique. So I'm going to save that. And what we want to do, so since we're logging the tag, we want to make sure that our objects are tagged in a way that we can recognize when we hit them. And the tags, you can see here, tag, right now everything's untagged. So we have all of our cubes, and we want to tag them with something that distinguishes them as cubes. So I can actually make my own tag here. So add tag. It's a cube. Cool. I'm also going to create a tag for my sphere and my cylinder. And our cylinders are mystery object. Save. Okay, so now that I've created these tags to use, I can then apply them to my objects. So you'll see here, I have a cube. I can grab all my spheres, tag them as sphere, grab my cylinder, tag it as a mystery. So now that we have this script, I have an error. Tag. There we go. Typo. So I'm logging the tag of the game object that has a color that I've run into. Okay. So if we open up our console, I'm not going to Maximus and play so we can still see our console. So if I play this, go into our game. So I'm hitting the terrain right now, which is untagged, which is why untagged is logging. Oh, there's our cube. There's another cube. Paint a sphere. There's a sphere. Okay, things are working. So when we run into things, we want to keep track of how many of them that we've run into. And so if we go back into our code, I'm going to create some variables to use as accumulators. And these are going to be just ints. And this one will keep track of the number of cubes we've hit. And that will keep track of the number of spheres. So in our code, what we want to do is if the tag is a cube, we want to add 1 to the number of cubes. If it's a sphere, we want to add 1 to the number of spheres. Okay. So if it's cube, add to the cubes. If it's sphere, add to the spheres. And then we're going to console log this information. Make sure you spell things correctly. Okay, so pretty straightforward so far. We're just console logging this information. So let's save. Play again. Okay, 0 cubes, 0 spheres. 1 cube. I've hit cubes a couple times. And we can see a problem here. When I hit my cube, it says that I have a cube, but the cube still exists in the world. And that's not what we want. We want the object to disappear after we've collected it. So let's work on that. If you look in your scene and you see this little check box right here, this is whether the object is active in the scene or not. And you can actually access this attribute programmatically. So this is what we're going to use to make our object disappear after we've collected it. So we go back into our code. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that other object and we're going to turn it off. So that's set active, we're going to say false. We're going to do the same thing for the spheres. And now we should be able to collect stuff. Okay. Yes, I have a cube, and the cube no longer exists. Oh, got that cube. Okay. I think my computer's a little slow right now. Okay, so we're collecting stuff. And we want to be able to actually see as a player what we've collected. So right now we're logging into the console, which is great for us, but not so great for the player. So what we need to do is to create some UI text so we can display it on the screen. So if we go into the Create menu and we use UI, we're going to click Text. And if you take a look at this canvas, this is where it appears, is off to the side. I'm going to side dock the game screen so you can kind of see what's going on here. So we have our new text. It's like on the canvas. And so first thing I want to do is actually position this where I want it to go. And if I select my text object, we have this little position thing. And you can see that if I set my pivot and my position by holding down Shift and Alt, I can click on the upper corner and it will put it there. So I'm holding Shift, Alt, and I clicked in that upper corner. And that positions my text. I'm going to move it just a little bit away from the corner using the position X and position Y. And then I'm going to set some default text that's like, go grab things. Great. Maybe I'll do a little bit of styling, font bold, maybe make the color white so you can read it a little bit better. Great. Okay. What I'm doing with this 400 is to set the text box a little bit wider. Right now it's probably a little too wide, but you see the width is changing here. This is the text box. If your text goes outside the size of the text box, it gets clipped. So I'm just making sure that we have enough space. Okay. So I have this text, and now I want to change it whenever I'm collecting an object. So we first need to tell Unity that we'll be using the UI tools. So say, hey, Unity, we're using your UI tools. And now I need to be able to access this text element. So I'm going to create a public variable. And so I have this public text variable. So if I save this, look on my controller, we have this script. Give it a second, it will load. Now I have this collect text that I can create a connection to this UI text. So I'm going to take that text object, drag it onto my public variable. And now with my code, I can access this. So we're going to create a separate function that will set the text. And what we want this to do is essentially every time it's called, it's going to set the text of our collect text object to be whatever our collection is. So collect text dot text equals, and I can actually just grab this and set it here. But one thing to keep in mind is the num cubes and the num spheres, these are ints. So we need to turn them to strings. So I'm going to use that in order for them to be strings properly. So I'm going to save that and let's test it out. Okay, So here I have a cube. Great, it's setting it right up in the corner. Let's try and grab a couple things. 2 cubes, 1 sphere, 2 spheres. Okay, looks like that's working. All right, so that's basically working. The next thing we want to do is deal with this mystery object that we have. So we're like running along this path and all of a sudden we see this thing that's a total mystery. And if we touch it, nothing happens, which is very unsatisfying. So we want to like give a little bit of instruction to the player. This could be where you're bringing in some of your narrative, just something that'll show up on the screen when you hit this mystery object. So we need to make sure that our cylinder is tagged. So, okay, we have a tag, this is mystery. And we want to create another UI element that'll show up in the middle of the screen. So if we create another text object, I'm going to rename this mystery text, okay? And we're going to okay, so I'm just going to give it some text to start off with. I'm going to position it. I'm going to center align it and then center align it vertically also. Do styling, make it bigger. Make sure it has space. I'm going to make this red. Okay. Awesome. So we want it not to be there by default, so I'm going to delete that so that there's nothing in our text to start off with. Okay, so in our code, we need to be able to access this other text variable. So we're going to make another public text variable. Okay. So we need to wait for it to show up here. There we go. Make that connection. Oops. There we go. Okay, so we have that connection. Now that we can access it, we go back into our code and we'll say if we hit a tag, if we hit the mystery tag, we're going to set our mystery text to be, what is this mystery? Okay, so let's save that. So when we hit it, it's going to set it to be mystery. What is this mystery? Let's test. So I'm just going to go straight there. Oh, mystery, mystery. What is this mystery? Okay, so we have a little bit of a problem in that once we set the text, it's there, and then it doesn't go away, which is kind of annoying. So let's change that. So we have this onTrigger enter script, but there also is an onTrigger exit. So if we leave a trigger, and if that collider has a tag that is mystery, we're going to take that mystery text and set it to be an empty string. Let's test it. Okay, getting the cubes, getting the spheres. go in there. What's this mystery? Oh, it's gone. What's this mystery? Okay, this is great. This is working great. So that's pretty good. We want to add a little bit of fun to it though, in that different messages can show up every time you touch the cylinder. So let's start off by keeping track of how many times we've hit the mystery object. And we're going to create an int to store that. Mystery encounters. We start at 0. And then we're also going to create an array of strings to use to display. So instead of hard coding it, and down here, we're going to create an array that will loop through every time we hit it. And this is the how you make an array. So you put the little square brackets after the type of array you're making, and then in curly brackets, you'll create your string objects. So I'll say, what is this mystery? It's very mysterious. Wow. Okay. Now what we're going to do is every time we hit the mystery object, we're going to set our mystery text to be one of the strings in our mystery text array. So mystery text, and then the number that we're going to set it is to be how many times we've hit it. So if we've just encountered it for the first time, mystery encounters is 0, and so we're going to set it to be the 0th spot in the array, which is the first spot. Mystery encounters. And then we want to add one to our mystery encounters. And since our array is only 3, we'll say if mystery encounters is greater than 2, set it back to 0. So we're going to loop through, and if it gets to a spot that's past this, it'll loop back to the beginning. All right. So let's save that. Play again. So we're collecting things. Have this mystery. What's this mystery? It's very mysterious. Wow. And then it loops back to the beginning. What's this mystery? Yep. Okay, so these can be really useful tricks. What we're doing is we use our tag to distinguish objects from other objects so we can count them. We have these accumulators that are keeping track of how many things we've collected. We're using these public text variables to change our UI text based on these actions. And we have just a little bit of fun coding techniques to change the text that we're putting in every time we interact with something. OnTrigger exit and OnTrigger enter are functions that are built into Unity, so these come with the whole trigger thing. Notice on your FPS controller, don't forget to make your collider into a trigger in order to use them. And then this is a function that we made ourselves. So great, I hope that was helpful. You can use these same techniques to do things like changing color, triggering animations, basically anything you want to happen when you're colliding with something. So I hope this was helpful.